Good morning, act.tv. Welcome to Solidarity with Alex and Jocelyn. We're here to talk to you about all the crazy shit that's happening and ways that you can ideally stay sane and perhaps do good things for the world. We have a wonderful guest on with us today. Alex, would you like to introduce yourself? Alex Lawson. We have two Alexes right now, by the way.
We do. Thanks, Jocelyn. So I am excited to have this, our first show, Solidarity, I say, with Jocelyn and Alex. I guess we're going to have to arm wrestle to see whose name comes first. But our idea was that we both do a lot of these live streams for various other clients. I do it for Social Security Works. This is going out live on Social Security Works as well. And the act.tv Social Security Works partnership is really strong. So we thought we would do this show to bring issues that we're working on, some of the stuff that we get to do right now during the pandemic is really exciting. And like working with the Postal Workers Union and trying to stop the wholesale destruction of the post office in the middle of a pandemic. And I think we're going to talk about that a little later today. Social Security Works, we focus a lot on issues that affect seniors and people with disabilities. Right now, COVID is killing seniors and people with disabilities at just astronomical rates, nursing homes becoming death traps, and the government response has been basically nothing. And so we want a space to keep people up to date with what's going on during these COVID times. But, Jocelyn, as we've long discussed, we don't want it to just be a total bummer either. We actually want to discuss and be honest about how difficult this time is for people and talk about ways that we can work together to get through it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. This whole time is a bummer. And I think we're all struggling with information overload on a lot of this. Like, I know so many people who have just taken a full-on hiatus from the news. And I can't blame them. We need a space and a way to be able to talk about this information and consume this information, but do it in a way where we're not losing our minds, because I think we're all kind of in danger of losing our minds. It's been 2 months exactly, Alex. As of May 13th, most of us have been quarantined for 2 months. That's a long time.
It is. I am 2 months and 2 days myself. Because I studied pandemics when I was getting my master's. And so I was a little bit more prepared for what was going to come. But, you know, everyone should understand the magnitude of what is happening right now and understand the force of the collective trauma that we're all going through. When you have, you know, almost 90,000 Americans dead by this incredibly infectious disease. And we will say over and over again, in South Korea, less than 300 people have died. And the first cases were on the same time in America and South Korea, because all pandemics are political. All pandemics are political. It's one of the things you study when you study pandemics, is that the response to the pandemic is as important as the profile of the disease itself. And what has happened so far in America has just been a down the checklist of things not to do. The president is giving wrong information. He's making scientists the enemy, and just basically causing more chaos. And so that is a real feeling. And then I think there's something uniquely American, like it's a little bit of entitlement, but a little bit, I mean, a lot. Americans just don't think that bad things really happen. to us here. That's a writ large thing, because there's millions of Americans who live in a society where they know that bad things happen to us every day, especially Black and brown Americans, poorer Americans. But the narrative of America does not include, that a disease could shut down the entire country, and that we would be the bumbling, fumbling response of the world. It's just not in the mythos. All of the movies and everything, America is always the hero that leads the band. We'll send Bruce Willis to an asteroid that he blows up, right? With Aerosmith, I think. It's never that, we get totally just beaten down by a disease, and we have to lock ourselves in our houses for 2 months. So I think that part of it is actually really hard. And that's why we're seeing all these, that plus billionaire money, why we're seeing all this tension right now about opening up the economy.
That's the problem too. We don't have, at the beginning of this, I'm sure everybody remembers, the narrative was largely like, oh, if you're safe and if you don't have a fever, you're going to be okay. There is a way to prevent this. And the way we talk about individual responsibility leaks into our healthcare response. If you've saved up enough money, if you're on the right healthcare plan, when of course we know that's not the case. We know that we are in a unique situation where almost everybody is susceptible to catching this, and almost nobody is financially equipped to handle the fallout of that. Like, why is, when it comes down to it, there should be a situation where we're getting mass tested, there is a plan for mass care, and instead it's been, like you said, Alex, politicized at every step, and a very, very small number of people are making a tremendous amount of money off of this. Yeah. And that's the most terrifying part. Jeff Bezos is about to become a trillionaire thanks to COVID-19. That should not exist. We shouldn't have trillionaires. And Alex, when you say you studied pandemics, so what is other than be like South Korea, what is the way to fix this?
Be like South Korea. The thing about pandemics that is so mind-boggling to me, and first of all, is get good information. So I recommend Greg Gonsalves on Twitter, and we'll put his handle in the comments. Just fantastic public health. Amy Kapczynski also, public citizen. You have to be able to get information that you trust, because right now, I'm sorry to say, but it's true. If you listen to the government, they're putting you in danger. It is not safe to do what the government is saying unless you live in a couple of states that are doing really well. Washington State, Governor Inslee is doing really well. Governor Newsom in California. Cuomo is, he's got a good PR game, but he's responsible for an enormous amount of the carnage that we're seeing in New York, because we don't have a treatment. Here's the things you learn about pandemics. The key is it's new. That's what causes the pandemics. It's a novel bug. So it crosses from an animal. So it's zoogenic. And there's a whole journal, if you want to just freak yourself out, it's called the Journal of Emerging Infectious Diseases. You can read all about it. And pandemics have the potential to be species enders. They can actually kill all humans in existence. That's why we study them. And that's why COVID-19, there's actually a lot of research done, because coronaviruses were not the ones that people thought were going to be the pandemic. We thought it was going to be an influenza. But then the last two bugs that have crossed the species barriers were coronaviruses, MERS and SARS. So then once you have a novel bug, it means there's no immunity in the population. So everyone is susceptible to it. So then what you're looking at is how deadly is it and how infectious is it? And this, I don't want to get too into it on the first one. We can have the public health hour whenever we want, Jocelyn, but this is good for people to understand. I keep hearing, so remember, there's two things. How infectious is it? How much do people who are infected, how many people can they infect? And then how deadly is it? Now, if you focus on just one or the other, it doesn't give you a good picture, which is why on the internet, on social media, I keep seeing these people who are yelling about it's safe. It's, 99% of the people who get it don't die. Only 1% die. And you're like, right, that's fantastic. 1% of what? What is the number that 1% of them will die? Because if it's really infectious, which it is, then 30 to 70% of a population is going to be infected with the bug. And then if 1% of that, of those infected die, we're talking about millions of deaths in the United States alone. So it's the infectiousness and the mortality together. And the thing that makes this one super unique is just how infectious it is. It's way more infectious than most of our models were thought. And, that we've been updating it along the way, but it is as infectious as a common cold, a little bit more infectious than the flu. And so it's a really super dangerous bug. But now, because people are consuming all sorts of junk science, science, can we just say that Oprah Winfrey is really, she gave us both Dr. Phil and Dr. Oz, both of whom are just BS.
Terrible.
They just terrible. Oprah should say sorry for that one. So trying to comprehend all that is really difficult for people. And here's the good news, though. I'll share a Twitter thread later on this. There's only one thing that we can do. So we don't have treatment and we don't have a vaccine and there's no cure. So that means the only responses are public health responses, which means testing, tracing, isolating. So test, trace, isolate. That's it. That's the only thing that works. That's why South Korea has 300 deaths and we are closing in on 90,000. So basically, until we see a national program of testing, tracing, and isolating, then we have not done anything yet.
Well, and this is the problem. I mean, we are looking at a situation where an entire country or a large portion of an entire country has been gaslit into being complicit in their own death. It's fascinating because you and I talk about this all the time, Alex. There are large parts of a capitalist system which do that in more subtle ways, but this is very explicit. You have people protesting for their right to be exposed to a lethal virus. It's insane. And the way, it's like you said, the science is not only out there, but it's kind of ubiquitous right now. You can't so much as open a peripheral blogosphere site without, everybody is talking about coronavirus. Everybody is talking about what we need. Everybody is talking about testing and finding a vaccine and all of that. The information is out there. And yet you still have people who are so addicted to a system which preys upon the labor of the majority of Americans that they are fine. They're fine with the risk to them and their loved ones if it means they can continue to be a part of that system. And this is why, one of the things we really want to talk about here is the psychological dynamics at play that create this to begin with. Because Trump's approval rating, sure, it's down, but it has not gone down in the ways that it should have. Has that shocked you too? I mean, for me, it is and it isn't shocking, right? Because of everything we're talking about, I'm not surprised. But it's still insane to see that his approval ratings holds at relatively 50% after all this. I mean,
it unfortunately to me, it's not that shocking because but I also think you see a lot of weakness. Seniors, for example, are starting. He's showing weakness with seniors because he's actively killing them.
Yeah.
So we're going to see that. And I do think it's good that you brought up the system, because it's true. We read about all this stuff, testing and vaccines, but it's important to know that vaccines and treatments are way in the future. And the only thing we have right now are public health responses: testing, tracing, isolation. And right now, the biggest sort of question, and we're going to bring on Alex Zaitchik just in a minute here, is to which route are we going to go when it comes to treatment and vaccines? Because for the right now, we have to focus on public health, and we're failing that miserably. And people are protesting to be cannon fodder for billionaires' portfolios. And the two paths, one of them is how we eliminated smallpox and polio, and the other one is the one that really works for the billionaire class. And so if we don't fight hard, the billionaires are going to win this struggle as well. And that means that for millions of people, it just means we'll never get the coronavirus under control, because it'll just be another way for people to profit. So joining us right now to talk about that and explain a little bit of the history is Alexander Zaitchik, who wrote No Vaccine in Sight. It's up at the New Republic. Alex, thanks for joining us here on Solidarity.
Good to be here.
And I will say, I've known Alex for 20 years, and you often write, the best thing that I have read on this subject for a bit, and he hates it when I say this, but this is the best explanation of what we're looking at when it comes to vaccines and pharmaceuticals, what the choice between a public pharma and ending coronavirus versus a system where private equity barons continue to make tons of money, but where the vaccine is in the far distant future, if we ever get there, and treatment will be restricted to those who can afford it. Can you just sort of set up this story and what you found when you were reporting on it?
Sure. Maybe a good place to start is MERS, which you mentioned, which had a mortality rate of something like 60%. We had these warning shots of coronaviruses that could, as you say, represent an existential threat to humanity, just extremely dangerous viruses, which are, dangers on par with a global war or worse. So the model that we have lost steadily over the last 50 years actually grew out of this mindset of a wartime footing against potential pandemics. And the organization that kind of embodied that sense of urgency and government dedication and focus to being ready for these events was the Office of Scientific Research and Development, which FDR established on the eve of World War II, when they wanted to also develop new forms of warfare, and the atom bomb came out of the OSRD. But the primary motivation was fears over a repeat of the Spanish flu, which killed more servicemen in World War I than the actual war, bullets and mustard gas. So there was this sense that biomedical research was an essential national security issue based on the memory of 1918. And that organization pretty much set the tone for the next 3 or 4 decades, which was an incredibly rich period of US-led, publicly financed and directed vaccine research, biomedical innovation across the board, but especially vaccines. Some of the most famous vaccines that everyone knows about, polio, rubella, flu, measles, came out of this very intense, very well-funded government project that was not geared toward monopoly science, profits, all the things that we now associate with big pharma, which is something we can get into. But the OSRD basically created this vaccine infrastructure and sense of duty among even private actors that has sort of rapidly dissipated with the increasing involvement of finance in the industry, with the changing of the rules. And this is basically the key point, because the financialization of the industry would not have been possible without government tweaking of patent law and making 20-year monopolies patents possible, which didn't used to exist. So we basically have this kind of sort of split screen if we go back into the 20th century, where we can see a lot of vaccine innovation taking place that was extremely well funded, that was based on an understanding of not only a humanistic commitment to moving science forward, but also an understanding that these are like extremely serious national security, public health threats that needed a wartime level of attention. And that has been lost as we've moved towards this new paradigm of private science, where the industry is, not just in pharma, but across the economy, considered to be more efficient, more productive than the public sector, which is, in the case of vaccines, proven to be absolutely not true. This is an industry that is completely disincentivized to care about high risk, low probability events, and their eye has absolutely not been on this ball. And depending on them to maintain focus on something that's not going to return a lot of money is incredibly irresponsible.
It's funny you bring that up, Alex, because this conversation about pandemic response has been going on for a long time in intellectual circles. When I was in high school, I read, The Coming Plague by Laurie Garrett. And I think a lot of us, this isn't totally a surprise. So how do you flip this? How do you create political will for something that is profoundly important but not profitable?
Well, I mean, political will, I think that starts with getting people to understand the issue. I think people have an intuitive sense already that's pretty widespread that the drug system is not working, just based on the price and access crisis in this country. I mean, there's no reason for Americans to be insulin rationing in 2020.
Right.
Insulin invented in a public laboratory in Toronto 120 years ago.
Really?
And it's very cheap. Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. People are insulin rationing because we've allowed a cartel to dominate the industry, and there's no price controls in this country. So people understand intuitively. They know someone with a GoFundMe page trying to raise money for life-saving medicines, but maybe they don't understand exactly how simple this is to fix and what are the root causes. So I think the big project right now is getting people to understand that this is a government-created, man-made problem, really. The industry loves to talk about how complex this stuff is, and people couldn't possibly understand it. It costs $7 billion to develop a new drug, and only they can do it. Only they have the wherewithal, and it's just simply not the case. They've been incredibly effective in their propaganda operation since the 1970s, basically, where they've built up an infrastructure to push these messages, and it's worked. But now we need to deconstruct that message.
Can I just jump in on that one, just because there's such a good example? We spent over $700 million, the taxpayers, U.S. taxpayers, on research into coronavirus vaccines because of MERS and SARS. That was taxpayer funding. We were looking at these vaccines. Then, as you go over in your article and you've explained, vaccines actually don't make money for pharma. Like the private equity bros who run pharma. Pharma is not scientists. It's private equity bros. They don't want to do vaccines. It's actually just a PR thing for them. So we spent $700 million on the research. We've now, through the different, stimulus or response bills, around $5 billion has gone to BARDA, which is actually set up to publicly manufacture vaccines and to do what we used to do here. But what they've done is just handed that money out with no restrictions to Johnson & Johnson and one other company. And what Johnson & Johnson has added to this quest for the vaccine is that they created an 8-part miniseries called The Road to the Vaccine, hosted by Lisa Ling. That's literally what they did. That's what they did. We built with that BARDA money the facility to manufacture the vaccine. We created the research that will lead to a vaccine. Johnson & Johnson is just handed billions of dollars, and they will own the vaccine if it's created here under our model. It will be owned by a company in order to profit. I don't know, Alex, if you want to.
This is very depressing. What's the good part, you guys?
So here, let me ask a question on it. That's one system. That's what Alex has been talking about. The other side of what's going on is actually amazingly heartening. There is a huge level of global cooperation that I've actually never seen before. And you know, I spend my time on public health, on taking on pharma, on trying to lower drug prices. Global cooperation at a level that I've never seen before, where countries are saying they're coordinating their data, they're sharing their research. It's all with one aim, which is to develop a vaccine to end the coronavirus, which has shut down the world. And you're like, yes, that makes a ton of sense. The US are the ones who are sitting out of it because we don't want the vaccine. Donald Trump in the current framework doesn't want to be part of this global cooperative model because no one is going to own that vaccine. That vaccine will be what we did for polio, what we did for smallpox, where the whole world got together and we eliminated diseases. That's what this global model is. And I think I want to just get your comment on it, Alex, but I think my favorite way in on this is there's this huge news story right now where it's like the Chinese are hacking the data to try to get the vaccine information and all the studies, and it's a national security threat. Yeah. And, on the one hand, I'm like, oh, I don't want the Chinese hacking the data. And I'm like, but on the other hand, why do they have to hack the data? Why aren't everybody working together to create this vaccine?
Yeah, and it is true that this is where the hope is in the current moment. You have WHO, you have the UN, you have a lot of organizations calling for global patent pools or open science cooperative projects, and people are realizing that that's really the only thing that makes sense right now because luckily we're not in a world war situation. This is war of the worlds, where it's all of humanity against this microbe. So there's absolutely zero reason for us to be erecting walls. But the fact is that our drug development system, especially in this country and around the world, largely because we exported it and enforced it through the WTO and our power over international trade, is about walls. It's based on the opposite of an open science collaborative model, which basically defined innovation in all areas of science for most of human history. Now it's about protecting your IP. There's been this profusion of IP in the last 30 years that just didn't exist. If you look at the line, it's just like it explodes out of nowhere. I mean, we invented this concept that has left us, not just at a cold start, but behind the line for a truly cooperative international project for something like this. And even nonprofit research centers are having to contend with all of this patented science that's in the way of them working together. So there's really no way to kind of work around the patent system. We have to have a fundamental reckoning with it and look at all the ways that it is just not something that we should allow into the 21st century, because this is going to be an age of pandemics. I mean, the close calls have just been coming closer and closer. Just the way we used to talk about 100-year floods that are now the new normal, we have to be ready for this to be the new normal, and should be, we should have a footing that reflects that. And the fact that we had a footing that reflected that in the 1940s, more so than today, is pretty shocking. But luckily, we do have these alternative models in our own history and also in place around the world. Lots of countries still have public pharmaceutical sectors. Cuba, which has a GDP the size of New York City, has a lung cancer vaccine that's been approved for clinical trials in the US. You can have innovation without monopoly science. There are plenty of examples of that, and the industry claims it's not true, but it absolutely is. And more and more people are beginning to realize that, and that is exactly what's hopeful.
Well, and it's intuitive, right? I mean, the idea that people are only motivated by large amounts of material wealth is just sort of ridiculous. You hang out with high school kids for 30 minutes and they're all excited about their science projects and whatever they're working on and discovering. People are excited about scientific advancement for the sake of scientific advancement. You don't have to create a Thunderdome situation for that to be the case. And it's weird that we've bought into that model because it empirically does not work. I mean, I don't know. I hope we shake ourselves free of that mythology in time for us not to all die. What do you guys think the odds of that are? High, low?
Well, we have to win.
Yes.
And I want to, Alex, thanks so much for coming on and talking about your article up at the New Republic, No Vaccine in Sight. It's literally the best thing that anyone can read to understand the model, the system that we're in right now that literally caused this pandemic. We couldn't have stopped a bug from jumping the species barrier, but we have all the tools at our disposal to actually catch it, mitigate it, and get rid of it, which is what we did with MERS and SARS. If we weren't letting these corporations actually define the system, and we were actually doing it on a public footing with public pharmaceutical systems, which the majority of the system already is public. We just need to get that last piece where we hand the patents away and get rid of that. So Alex Zaitchik, the article's No Vaccine in Sight. You can read it on in this month's copy of the New Republic. It's online at thenewrepublic.com. Alex, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Alex.
It's been a pleasure.
So Jocelyn, I think the coming out of that, it is so clear that there are two paths forward, and you can say it however you want, but I think a tried and true one is it's socialism or barbarism, and it literally is. On the one hand, if we let these corporations and Donald Trump and Jared Kushner and the private equity barons that are behind all of this get their way, we will not succeed as a species. We are destroying ourselves, whether it's global warming, which is just like this pandemic except a lot slower, or this pandemic or the next pandemic, or inequality ripping our society apart. Our inability to act is not just a place that we ended up. It's actually fomented. It is a propagandized, weaponized system, and it's perpetrated on us to make a small amount of people fabulously wealthy. A trillionaire, 1,000 billions. Why? That means a system that is completely out of whack, out of control. If somebody can accumulate $1 trillion of wealth, our system needs to go the other way. We need to go the other way, where we say, we're going to build systems that work for the people. Yes, Jeff Bezos cannot become a trillionaire in this system because we don't want trillionaires. We actually don't want people to accumulate so much wealth that they destabilize the system, because the only way to do that is by corrupting systems like Zaitchik just went over, where we used to actually do science and cure diseases. You get into the nobility of science and the people who are making discoveries. It's super true. It's also true that if there is a lot of greed out there too, and so private equity is able to prey on that. We need to figure out how to really get back to incentivizing the idea that people will know Jonas Salk's name forever. right?
Yes.
Jonas Salk, his name will be known forever because that is what you get when you are working for the public good, when you are the hero. That system of cooperative allows for us to do great things.
Well,
did you see the video of Papa John's house?
no.
You
What?
see it?
How did I miss this?
It's literally exactly what you would think that asshat, the house that he lives in. It's the gaudiest, most disgusting thing you've ever seen in your life.
No, really?
And no one will remember him.
No.
He'll be a joke for another few years when he puts his house. But Jonas Salk and people who working together have moved humanity forward, there are heroes. They enter the story, the narrative of humanity.
Well, and I love that we're talking about this in this way, Alex, because look, you and I we love great novels. We love hero stories. But there is nothing like the present moment in history to show and demonstrate in just very material, empirical ways the extent to which a country's mythology or a culture's mythology has direct implications for who lives and who dies. Because of what you're talking about. We have this like Wolf of Wall Street idea of what it means to be important and powerful. And we've lost sight of the fact that those people are trashy. It's gaudy. It's disgusting. It's not in this like baller mentality that we have in our modern era that fetishizes just extreme wealth. And, even the idea of Batman, right? Like this asshole billionaire who goes around fighting individual crimes. That is not the mythology that can save humanity from itself.
So super true. And I want you, but I also, so like Batman is lame. And I have a 4-year-old son and I try to steer him away from Batman.
Super lame.
He's lame. But literally no billionaire has even been
also
Batman.
True.
Right?
Also true.
He's lame, but literally no billionaire has been like, I will actually become Batman. They're like, I'm going to build a spaceship to go to another planet. And you're like, why don't you pay your workers a living wage on this planet?
Because we don't have a cultural narrative that supports that. And Elon Musk can get on Twitter and, I saw a meme earlier today. He was like, I will keep my factories open if I get arrested. And somebody responds, this guy thinks he's Rosa Parks, but he's Space Karen. It's true. Like, this guy thinks he's some heroic entrepreneur, but he's a banal, pathetic asshole. And yet, you still have 20-year-old libertarians who think he's the man. And that's what we have to fix. Because it's like, look, do people want to die of coronavirus? No. But they buy immediately into a system where they will die of coronavirus. And that's a problem. I mean, I've seen so much internet chatter about, I love how Americans just got bored with coronavirus and collectively decided it was over. Like, right. Numbers are as high as ever. And yet people are like, I think that's about enough for me. I think it's time we reopen. What is that?
Yeah, there's a few things. It is really easy, and we should make fun of the people who bring automatic weapons to the Capitol to be like, I want to be cannon fodder for billionaires, because those people are terrible. But there is a huge swath of this country that are people who are just scared, and they're propagandized at a level that's just tremendous. And I don't think we spend enough time recognizing, and I want to talk about other, whatever you want to talk about, but if you give me one more minute to just, this propaganda stuff is something I study a lot. So the way to think about it is, why do I don't know if this question will blow up in my face. Do you have a razor that you use,
Yeah.
Jocelyn?
Yeah.
And how many razors are on it? How many blades?
Like 4, I think.
Did you always have 4 blades?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I don't know.
So when I started shaving, I had 1 blade.
Right? Oh, yes. Actually, yes, that's true. I went from like cheap to...
And then they were like, if 1 blade is doing well, what do you think 2 blades is going to do? Right? And then now we're at the point where they're like, if 2 blades was doing well, imagine what 17 blades is going to do for you. You're going to be able to shave even closer. And you're like, that's not real. That's not real. A 1 blade safety razor shaves just as close as a 15 blade one. Why? It's a thing that's called inferiority marketing, and it's the base of all of our consumerism. Is the way that we are hit. The most fundamental propaganda that we face is actually TV advertisements, where they basically say like, are you being held back at work? Which they don't have to say that in words. They can actually just show a life that's better than yours. And it makes you feel bad. And it's not always beauty. It can be like, like, oh, look, they're taking a vacation. It makes you feel bad in your brain, in your brain science. Sigmund Freud's nephew actually invented inferiority marketing right after World War II. And the whole industry grew from there. So you make people feel bad, and then you substitute in maybe a 5th razor blade is going to make you feel better.
Yes.
And it hits the brain chemicals in your brain that actually make you happy. So you felt bad, and now you're happy, and you can get happiness by buying things that you don't need. That propaganda all the time has made us incredibly susceptible to what we're seeing right now, where people are just like, I can't deal with this. I've got to go outside. There's too much input coming in, and I don't know which one is the correct one. So I'm just gonna live in a fantasy. I'm gonna go with whichever one lets me do the thing that I wanted to do anyways.
Well, and relatedly, it's so interesting you say this, because this brings up something for me. At risk of being a judgmental asshole, that you will never see a time where a reading culture has direct benefits as you will right now, for a couple of reasons. One, people who are able to process information in a deeper way, regardless of their intellectual capacity, but people who are just able to like ruminate and focus on the information in front of them are, one, going to make more sense of this in the way you're talking about, but 2, it's like, one of the things I've been thinking about while we're all quarantined, and by the way, I totally am here for everybody who's losing their mind, because I get it, but at the same time, like, are we so far from the contemplative life that the thought of staying in and reading a book for a few weeks is so anathema to us as a culture? Like, we can't handle it. And that's not really anyone's fault. It's a direct result of everything you're talking about, Alex. We have been socialized at a very aggressive way to be a culture which doesn't value that type of deeper thought and doesn't value that type of deeper silent time. And again, I realize I sound like a dick, but it's true. Like, we should all be more in touch with the kind of space which allows this to be slightly more bearable than it's been for people. Is that rude?
It's not rude. I just will say from that the thought of reading a book right now is like the greatest thing in the world for me, but also completely out of reach because I have 2 small children.
Well, that's good too.
In the quarantine, but everyone has their own thing. A book would be so good, but the idea of reading stuff is so key, because what you're saying, again, the inferiority marketing stuff, it only works when it's moving fast.
Yes.
It only works when it's moving fast. which is what you're talking about. We actually, there's another book. We were going to talk about the post office, but now I feel like we're going to be talking about how our brains work for a bit, but that's fun. Daniel Kahneman's book, Think Fast, Think Slow, is everyone should read this book to understand how our brains work, and then how that can be manipulated, so that you can say, get people to go out and protest something that will lead to their own death, or possibly their own death, and doesn't benefit them at all, right? It's for somebody else's benefit. The two parts of our brain are one that works slow and one that works fast. The fast part is how you can drive a car going 70 miles an hour and make, decisions that allow you to do that. You don't actually think about them. You make snap decisions. And the other part of our brain actually processes information, and it goes much slower. When I do this in a presentation, there's a trick you can do. You can ask somebody, raise your hand if you want to help. And then they start walking up to the front. And then you say, quick, what's 7 times 6? And what people do every time, they have to stop and think about it, because the fast part of your brain is letting you walk up. But when you stop and process it, then you actually can come up with the mathematical answer. What we play with propaganda and with advertising is making people do these snap judgments that then sit. And once somebody has made this decision, it's really hard to try that out, right? We've all seen that people are pretty, once they believe something, it becomes connected to their ego, and they don't want to actually let go of that belief. We're seeing that a ton right now with all the conspiracy theories. And I do that whole think fast, think slow, because something I found is really useful with my friends who maybe are starting to question things as they're going stir crazy. And they're like, maybe this YouTube video is the answer. There is somebody. I just ask them to write out, what are you telling me? You can't send me a link. I'm not going to watch this YouTube video. You tell me how this works. And when somebody has to actually type out, their brain is like, that's stupid. That's actually really dumb. I'm not gonna believe that anymore.
Well, and I love that you bring up the certainty inertia that seems to take place, because that is what it is. If you can get people to buy into an insane worldview, no matter how insane it is, it's going to ferment. And that's what we're up against. We're not really dealing with coronavirus conspiracy theorists. We're dealing with people who have bought into a system where they will be okay no matter what, where the billionaires have their best interests at heart, where the powers that be, they may say they distrust Washington, but they ultimately do buy into the idea that if you're an American, things cannot go wrong. It doesn't matter that we have just so much research and so much social science about the fact that America is rapidly becoming a developing country. It doesn't matter that they know what happens to people who don't have health care. They have bought into this idea that we are going to be okay no matter what happens. So clearly the shoot off from that is coronavirus is fake. And oh, look, here's this YouTube video which agrees with that. Right. And I don't honestly I don't know what you do with those people other than outvote them, other than win, as you said earlier.
That is what we have to do with solidarity, is win. And that's the point of what we're talking about, is without dipping into despair, because this is, sad, and we are up against an enormous struggle. For Social Security works, because we work on nursing homes right now, because they've become death traps, and government inaction, active inaction, is what's led to it. I mean, the sadness that I get when I read about this stuff, and then we have to, do what we do, which is try to get the story out there so that we can get people's voices and elevate them. It's I want to put a pin in. That's also difficult. It's difficult to elevate people's voices right now. Our tried and true tactics of showing up in the streets right now does not work. So we're trying to do more, but sending, phone calls into Congress is basically all that we've got right now. It is only with solidarity that we can win. And don't throw everybody overboard, but if it's a dude who's gonna show up with an assault rifle, first of all, that's probably not a safe person to be around, because I do not think that they are in a place that you want to spend a bunch of time near them. But I do have friends who you can tell it's coming from a place of fear, and that the whole world has been turned upside down. A lot of what you were talking about before is a capitalist structure, but we're in hyper capitalism or something. Like, capitalism in and of itself has the seeds of its own destruction inherent in it, right? It has inherent flaws, because the pursuit of profits over everything, including the well-being of labor, your workers, and the environment, leads to the downfall of it. But we're not even in that anymore. We're in something stupider, because if you look at companies like Uber or WeWork or any of the SoftBank companies, they don't even pursue profits anymore. It's the pursuit of growth over all else, including profits. So this whole system is a house of cards that will fall. But that gives people an enormous amount of anxiety if they don't have something to put in its place, a substitution for this worldview, because it's hard for people to admit that their country, our country, is harming us. That white supremacy means that this country is not working for everyone in this country and never has worked for everyone in this country. That the myth is working for fewer and fewer and fewer people in this country. That's all very destabilizing. And so we have to do our job of being like, what's the alternative? And the alternative is solidarity. So I think we need to explain what that means. It means being there for your neighbors, for your allies. It means being there for people and standing with people as we fight these foes that seem insurmountable, like the pharmaceutical corporations. But they're all very brittle. And you just have to read enough history to see that they always fall. The people win. Solidarity can actually beat anything that comes its way. So that's what I think that's what I'm hoping our show is about, is making people understand what that alternative is.
And I think, I love and retweet and co-sign and everything you're saying, but I think you're right. And even I fall prey to this all the time. It's so easy to take people's fear seriously. And the avenue to solidarity, like you're talking about, is to focus on the reality that, like, we're all scared, we're all stressed out. There's nobody who can read an article about anything, whether it's coronavirus or the healthcare crisis or climate change, and not have a visceral, primal fear connection. And you're right. The way out of this is to really just connect with each other and realize there's so many more of us than there are of them. So many more. And we're educated and smart and well-meaning and brave. And that number of people, to be a student of history is to watch these battles get fought in different ways over and over and over again. And you're right. Ultimately, I visited Versailles last year. And the thing that really struck me is this power, this monarchical thing felt like it could never fall. And then it did. And then they had some more monarchs come back, and then it fell again. And now it's a museum, And one day, ideally, we will be visiting the Jeff Bezos Trillionaire Museum.
Yeah, we're going to stop him from being a trillionaire first.
True. Better idea.
And I think a thing that I have that I try to spread to people is this deep understanding of the New Deal, because of what I work on every day at Social Security Works. And it's the main message. This is I don't know if I can formulate it as well, so I'm going to keep working on it. is that, yes, it's that simple. It's that simple. That's what the New Deal tells us. The billionaire class wants everybody to believe that these problems are insurmountable. Like there's nothing we can do with the healthcare system. It's so complex. And the answer is we get rid of it and we build one that works just for the people and nobody profits on it. And everyone's like, oh, I don't know. And yes, it's that simple. That's what we can do with solidarity, is we can identify a problem and then solve it. We don't actually need to identify a problem and then come up with all these reasons why we can never solve it. Solidarity means that we don't accept these problems. We see Jeff Bezos maybe becoming a trillionaire where his workers are working sometimes to their death in his factory, in his warehouses for low pay. And we say, what's the solution? It's simple. We're going to pay the workers more, and Jeff Bezos isn't going to be able to become a trillionaire. There it is. We see Facebook has too much power and has destroyed the news industry. And we say, keep it simple. What's the end? We're going to break up Facebook. We're going to smash it to pieces so that it can't actually destroy the news industry and monetize our data and be wielded as this massive propaganda tool for the billionaire class. That's what solidarity is.
Damn. But yes, I obviously agree with everything you're saying, Alex. And I love that one of the things we keep bringing home this show is the simplicity of it. Because that's true. One thing that I'm always struck by is when people talk about, we can't afford this, we can't afford that. We can't afford these things through a system which is designed to not be able to afford them. The private insurance industry is not set up to make people better. So, right, if you're using a system which relies upon keeping a very small number of people exorbitantly wealthy, sure, then things are very difficult. But that system doesn't have to exist. We can make a better one. And it's not even that difficult. The difficult part is getting the political will to make it happen.
So I know we only have a couple minutes here, and I want to sort of tie a couple things together and give you the last word. So remember that inferiority marketing that I was talking about?
Yes.
I go on for a long time on it. There's a thing in it that is really important to understand why solidarity. It only works when people are isolated. Inferiority marketing and the entire second half of the 20th century was aimed at isolating Americans, breaking down any communitarian efforts. So isolating people and making them be responsible for all of the things that happen to them, and it's all personal responsibility. Even when it's the systems that are actually causing this, it's all put on the individual. And by breaking people down and not letting them actually gather together to feel our collective power, that's how the propaganda works, which is why the only way to stop buying razors with 6 razors on them when one razor will clearly work just as well because it's a razor blade that you scrape against your skin, there's nothing magical about it, is with solidarity. Because if we stand together, we're not susceptible to the propaganda that's coming at us, that's saying you can't have health care, that's saying you have to be in debt for the rest of your life to have an education. Solidarity, when we all get together and we talk about it, we're like, hey, why don't we just cancel this debt? Yeah, you guys all agree? Everyone agrees with this. Who doesn't agree with it? Some rich asshole over there? Well, guess what? We're going to overrule that person. Mm-hmm. That's solidarity. So, Jocelyn, this was a really fun first show.
Really fun first show.
So hopefully people stuck with us, and we're going to try to do more of these once a week. So why don't you close this out?
Yeah, you guys, thank you so much for being with us, the two Alexes and me. And seriously, I guess our call to action would be, don't go crazy, stay informed, yell at your congressperson or all your congress people. I don't know what district you live in. And seriously, with solidarity, we can accomplish all of this.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks so much.